D&D players like to use what I call the Fox News strategy. The Fox News strategy is pigeonholing your opponent into this lackluster, one-dimensional position that they either have to agree with or agree with you. And that in turn makes it to where you may as well be saying vote nay or vote I hate America. That's basically the choice Fox News gives you. That's basically the choice D&D players give you. And ironically, it's not from the so-called zealous fanatic edition war people. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as a fanatic edition war people. There are only people that are bamboozled into buying the new edition because they like new and colorful, and there are people that do not want to pay $60 for a goddamn manual. And why should you? But then again, you could probably just pirate it, but most D&D players are so far up the corporation's assholes that they would not even conceive the idea. So, we come down to how they want to blame 5th edition. That's right, it hasn't even been like 4 freaking years, but there's already a 5th edition of D&D on the fans, of course, because it can never be the company's fault. It always has to be someone on the poor side's fault. It can never be the rich's fault. And they're blaming the poor for their edition wars. What edition wars? I would love to be part of these so-called edition wars. I would love to see people at each other's throats over 3rd edition and 4th edition and the speculated 5th edition and blah. I don't see it. What I see is a bunch of independent third-party forums banning people because they want to be the king, the monarch, like Richard the Rapist Bueller and whatever the fuck little ghetto forum Zurog was part of. You know, I remember when 4th edition first came out. I remember when 3.5 was already controversial because of it being an upgraded version of 3.0. And yeah, 3.5 was in every way better. 3.0 only released like 5 fucking books. But people were still mad because they felt like it was a scam. Then when they started hearing about 4th edition, that just set them on fire, and rightfully so. You know, this isn't a trading card game. This is a role-playing game. The source books are just supposed to be, vague material that you use to assist your own imagination. It's an enhancement to your own ability to think up mechanics and a storyline. It isn't meant to be a strictly by-the-book game. So, when they started hearing about 4th edition, Wizards of the Coast started banning people left and right. Why does everybody forget this? Why does everybody forget that, Wizards of the Coast turned into freaking death camps for a while there, goose stepping around, banning everybody that even remotely mentioned 4th edition. Now, mind you, I was banned a little previously before this, but I came back under the Jim Prophet alias. I used to go by a different name, but I won't tell you what that is. But essentially, yeah, everybody started getting banned for just mentioning 4th edition. And they would say, no, there's no 4th edition, it's just trolls trying to, get you riled up. And then that turned into, okay, there is a 4th edition, but we don't want to indulge on corporate secrets, so that's why we have to ban people. And meanwhile, we're worried about the fucking government. But, these guys can come in their black helicopters and, oh, everything's fine because it's private, right? Fucking libertarians. So, then, like a month later, okay, there is a 4th edition. It never was about corporate secrets, but buy it anyway, you stupid goyim. And they did. The silly little Gentile goyim went out and bought $60 fucking books. It's just pretty paper, and it's a poorly constructed storyline, and just vague game mechanics that anyone could break or tweak with, and you went out there and bought it. Because, we can fucking pirate music, we can pirate movies, but for some reason, a book, something you would immediately think would be pirated, thus be available to everyone for the information, is not something easily accounted for. It's not something you can easily pirate. You have to look for it. So, then we come back to the so-called edition war. because now 25% of Wizards of the Coast forum is banned, good members, prominent long-term members, and now you have this destitute wasteland of new fags and bronies and freaking 4th edition kiddies that think Dungeons and Dragons equals World of Warcraft, and it's not the worst end that could happen. Proof is, after they had their fill and they jizzed all over the victims of all the banned people, the moderator just suddenly disappeared. And now Wizards of the Coast forum is basically, well, it's not anarchy. The moderators show their asses every once in a while, but for the most part, nobody gives a fuck. Why? Because it's a ghetto now. Nobody wants to go there. It's just a MySpace imitation, because back then MySpace was the big thing, not Facebook, and you know, it's just all these idiots talking about stupid shit, and you know, with they'd have no concept of the game itself, and it's just they repeat themselves over and over again. So it's a combination of stupid kids plus bad layout plus it's just so corporate shill and pre-packaged that nobody wants to be there. So they migrate to all these other stupid little forums where they circle jerk each other and, you know, and they treat each other like garbage. But that would happen over anything. It has nothing to do with the edition wars. It has to do with those people are fucktards. And they want to be fucktards because they want you to go through a hazing process to worship them. They don't want you to worship the edition. They want you to worship them, the moderators. And I figured that out immediately when all the patron deities of, you know, the Dungeons and Dragons forum of Wizards of the Coast were suddenly nowhere to be found, but they were still being idolatry, is that even a word? I don't know. Idly worshipped for, you know, just who they were. Medisha. Do you all guys remember Medisha? She was some chubby Canadian girl that, everyone wanted to fuck because Dungeons and Dragons players have very low standards, and everybody liked her. And to be fair, she was pretty nice, but you know, it was too much already. Get over yourself. It's excessive. And then Zurog was even worse, because Zurog was always real quiet, and he never bothered anybody. And then when he started running his own forum, suddenly he turned into fucking Himmler. And Shogun Warrior was a piece of shit. Godzilla actually named himself after a term in 3.5. I remember all of these people. I know who you are. I know all your secrets. I was amongst you. But unlike you, I was not full of hubris. I was an egomaniacal piece of shit that needed others, you know, compliments and worship in order to, you know, fulfill something in myself. I went on with my life. And all I asked for was the freedom to just post what I wanted to post and play my fucking Dungeons and Dragons games. And I couldn't even do that. So, we come down to how apparently there's these edition wars, when in fact it's just tribalism. It's just all these little forums banning you because you're not subscribing to their rules. What are the rules? Because they don't seem to follow the rules themselves. Well, what the rules are is you either give a hand job to the moderators or you don't get to post at the forum. Has nothing to do with the edition. I wish it was about the edition wars, because this is what communists call the hyper-nationalism. You know, North Korea is a hyper-nationalist state. It isn't because they're Korean. It isn't because of Kim Jong-il. It is because it is North Korea. They see themselves as this organic being. They see North Korea itself as this living organism that is to be preserved and protected. And that's why it's called hyper-nationalism, because it isn't based off ethnicity or religion. It is based off something more abstract, but more inclusive. And that is a kind of nationalism we communists can tolerate, because it's a step up from all that primitive, you know, shit that people can discriminate and treat each other like shit over. When you're a hyper-nationalist state, it's more welcoming, and it's not nearly as cruel or as unjust. It's still bad, but it's not nearly as bad. And that's why a lot of communist states end up turning into hyper-nationalist states. That has to do with Leninism, and I'm not going to get into all that here, because I'm nearing 10 minutes, so I will probably make a part 2 of, you know, why, well, never mind.